motherhood is designed this way for us to have all these feelings because that teaches us about ourselves and about our children. But we are inclined to neglect these difficult feelings.
Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it. We are told so often in motherhood that we should be enjoying every moment. And whether that is something that is explicitly said to us or just kind of this underlying theme of the expectation of what it means to be a mom, like you love your kids, you should be enjoying it, right? And we know that that's not possible. We're humans, we're living life, like there's a lot of complexities. But again, that theme, that message underlies a lot of our experiences. But the truth of the matter is that our emotions are complex and they not only continue to be through motherhood, but sometimes it can become even more complex because there's like this whole other dynamic in our lives with our kids and our responsibilities and all of that. And that brings along the topic of maternal ambivalence. That is what we're going to be getting into in this episode. We're going to be talking about, again, those complexities of emotions and why it's nothing to be ashamed of when you are not loving every moment. And joining me for this conversation is a very incredible guest, Dr. Margo Lowy. She is a psychotherapist with a specialty in mothering and the author of the book Maternal Ambivalence, which I have right here, Maternal Ambivalence, The Loving Moments and Bitter Truths of Motherhood. It is one of those reads that as soon as you open it, you're like, wow, this is extremely validating because this is kind of a taboo topic. Again, it's something that is very much different than the messaging we are constantly getting, but aligns with the experiences most of us are having. So, Dr. Margo Lowy, welcome to the podcast. Can you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Tell us about the work you do.
Well, the first thing I want to say is that was an amazing introduction. I mean, you know all this topic, the way that you put it was just fantastic. So what you did say, and which is very much part of my work and this book, is the taboo of mothering, and that you talked about a lot of shoulds. And I try and not use shoulds, or I kind of get a bit of a alarm when the word should is said, because it so much surrounds us in motherhood. And really, you've hit on the taboo, and also you've hit on the complicated feelings of motherhood. And what I do in my book and in my work is I talk about maternal ambivalence as a mother, our capacity to engage in all our feelings and not split them, but to see ourselves as having all these feelings. So we have feelings of happiness and we have feelings of not of unhappiness, and we have feelings of joy and we have feelings of sorrow, and we have feelings of calmness and feelings of frustration. And my work is about really validating all these feelings. It's your word, you use validating all these feelings, but paying special attention to the dark, difficult, struggling feelings. Because my work is about finding value in these feelings. They're there for a reason. Motherhood is designed this way for us to have all these feelings because that teaches us about ourselves and about our children. But we are inclined to neglect these difficult feelings. And that's because of taboo, because of how we collude with it. It's not only what the society says, we go along with it. And so really my work is about opening us up, normalizing all these feelings. They're all part of mothering, and to discover more about those neglected feelings. And they're there for a reason. And what I've experienced and what my work has and my study has really unleashed, in a sense, is that these feelings, these difficult feelings, if we take them and if we take notice of them and if we listen to them, they're actually transformative, and they really tell us more about ourselves. They become what I call a melting moment. It's like when you have a newborn and you're up all night for nights on end, and then it's so unbearable, And then all that baby, that infant has to do is smile at you and you melt. And all these difficult feelings you're just overwhelmed with love. And then you're able to face the next hour and the next day. And this is what I'm really talking about. These difficult feelings are there for a reason. So it's my take on maternal ambivalence. And what I've done with it, I don't know what you understand about ambivalence, about maternal ambivalence, but it's a really misunderstood term. Ambivalence is kind of a blurry thing, like it's either
Mhm.
this, maybe that. That's not how I see it. And most importantly, it's often confused with indifference
Yeah.
because I think they're long words. People don't really understand what they are. And indifference is the polar opposite of ambivalence. And indifference is when you cut off. And, and sometimes as mothers, we do that. And I just caution mothers to stay with it. Try, or if you've got to cut off, like for a second, to allow yourself, because indifference is dangerous. Ambivalence is actually connecting with yourself. So it's actually the opposite. It's keeping that connection going, connecting with yourself, connecting with your child, just keeping it going, knowing sometimes it's the most difficult thing. But it's actually our job as mums not to disconnect from our children.
Yeah. There's so much in there that I'm so glad you said. And one of the big things I want to bring attention to first is just the word ambivalence and the equating that to indifference. You
Mm,
said that, and I'm like, that's actually when I first learned the term maternal ambivalence. I thought that that is possibly what it meant because for some reason, ambivalence, like in my life, I thought it meant indifference, and it does not. It's a
yeah.
complexity of emotions.
Yes.
And then you brought that to how important it is to connect and how the ambivalence actually is part of that connection. And I think there's something crucial to understand there in the fact that when we plaster on a smile and feel like we should just be enjoying it all, and we're probably not because, I mean, that's not the reality of motherhood, how that does that like act of falling into that should can
Yeah.
actually cause so much disconnection from ourselves and from,
Yes.
in turn,
Yeah.
our children. There's so much in here that I want to jump into, but I would love to just kind of start by asking you what led you to write a book on maternal ambivalence?
Okay. I'll tell you. I'm very interested in mothering and actually did a master's research in the mid 90s about infertility. But I always
Okay.
wanted to do some more work on mothering. And I had my third child at the age of 41. And I'm also a psychotherapist. So I was working in psychotherapy. And I kind of realized in about 2012 that I actually better be around while she finishes school. So I decided that it was time for me to write something. And I was always intrigued that in my room, in my therapy room, consulting room, there was always what I called a symbolic empty chair for the client's mother. Like the client's mother, she wasn't physically there, but of course, we know in therapy, it's a lot about finding your place in the world, and it relates to coming to terms with your mother. That's a very big part of therapy, in my experience. So I knew there was something about mothering that I really wanted to study. But there's always been a lot about mothering, and I wanted to do something different. So I spent quite a long time, maybe a year or something, looking through the literature, seeing if I could find something. And I picked up a book by someone actually directed me to a book called by someone called Rosika Parker, who wrote this book in about 1997 called Torn in Two. And in fact, originally it was called Mother Love, Mother Hate. And it was about maternal ambivalence. And it's so fascinating that the name was changed because people couldn't manage those
Mm-hmm.
to even think that there might be actually hating moments for one child. Moments. I'm not talking about acting on anything, but even to have that feeling. Anyway, I was intrigued by this book, and it was kind of quite strange because I wanted to do it, but I was like, how can hating feelings? How can I even think? Because her definition of ambivalence was the loving and hating feelings that mothers experience. Anyway, I was intrigued. So I said, you know what? I've got to do this topic. And I remember sitting around when I decided I was going to do this work with a group of friends. And they all said, it was 1 week. And they said, how could you write about that? That is just, I don't understand. That is just, no, you can't. The next week, we reconvened and they started to say, well, it's quite interesting. I thought a little bit about what you said. Okay, so then that's when I dived into it. I did a PhD on it, and then I wrote an academic book on it, which is a fantastic book also. But it was really academic, and I decided then I really want to write a book that's a conversational book that anyone can pick up, whether it's a mother, a grandmother, a partner, very important, whoever, because it's about the world. It's about mothers in the world. So I decided to write this book, and it's so fascinating because you'd think it would be easy to write a conversational book after you've written an academic book. It was actually quite difficult. Anyway, so what I did, I put away all my research stuff and I wrote it just from my head and from my heart. And so this is it. That was a long way to tell you how I got to this. But it was really about like having a companion for mums when they are mothering. And it's about hands-on mothering. Actually, it's for all mothering because I'm a grandmother now and I still see how I adapt in my mothering. And I think I was able to look back because I'm older now and I don't have hands-on children. I still, of course, am a mother to my children and it's different, but I kind of felt I was far enough back to look at my mothering experiences and to really try and understand them as well as my research. And that I think that really informed the way that I wrote the book. And so that's how I got to this. And I do look back on a lot of my mothering, and there's a lot of stuff that I like. And there's also a lot of stuff that I don't like, and that's okay. And that's hands-on mothering. There's parts of it that we love and parts of it that we don't love or we don't like and we don't like about ourselves. But that's how mothering's designed. It's not meant to be how you think about it. The other reason I wrote it was because I really would have loved to have a book like this when I was doing first-time mothering. And when I think about it, all the stages of mothering, it really, because what it does, it kind of frees people to have these feelings and makes them normal. And it really needs to be part of our mothering narrative, which is what we all need to, we're all responsible for this. So that's a long way of telling you why I wrote the book.
No, I seriously am kind of obsessed with like the study of motherhood and the way that we talk about motherhood in a societal sense and the narratives that get passed on. And so like I have so many incredible guests on, and every once in a while I have a guest and I'm like, oh my God, your work is like what I need to, like what I want to be doing, and it's what I feel like that's part of what this podcast is normalizing normal experiences that are, to talk about hateful feelings in motherhood, that is so not something that is normally talked about. But as you said, it happens. It's part of the experience because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We all know that. And so it is so crucial to be creating spaces and resources for that to be normalized. Like this is a book that is published and someone wrote it, and it's because it's true, right? Like it's not just, we're not pulling it from, And so when you experience those feelings, when you experience things that you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right, to know, okay, well, no, like this is, other people have experienced this. We have proof of that. How powerful that can be. There can be, though, so much shame in admitting anything that's not that sunshine and rainbows, right? Like, I think also in our world, we have so many resources out there about mothering in terms of like the act of mothering, the act of like how to parent your kids in certain ways, and maybe even like how to regulate your emotions so that you can parent them in these certain ways or whatever it is. But like zooming out and taking a look at like the actual experience is completely different. It's not the how to, it's the, again, the normalizing, the validating that it's okay to figure out how you want to mother within the context that you're mothering in and the normal human experience you're mothering in. But again, there can be so much shame
Mm.
tied to those feelings. Can you speak to that shame
Yeah.
and how that comes up for moms and what that means?
Okay. That was amazing everything that you just said. And I think that what we're talking about here is normalizing our feelings and really how there's a whole world of taboo out there that really is around mothering. And there's something called the maternal ideal, which we kind of touched on it before. It's almost like this force field around us is kind of telling us, you need to be this, you need to be that, you can't do this, you can't do that. You have to be 24/7, fully caring, fully available. And we collude with that. And that's what we think we need to be. And it's a fantasy. I mean, no other person is meant to be like that. And I think the other thing that makes it really difficult these days is the social media. And
Mhm.
I mean, technology is great, don't get me wrong. If there wasn't technology, we wouldn't be meeting each other and seeing each other and doing these podcasts and sending the messages out. But I think what happens in social media, that mothering is often it's split. It's either
Yeah.
you're a loving mother or you're a bitter mother and or you're angry or you're compassionate. And so the mother is either like a Madonna perfect person or she's a witch. And it doesn't really, the internet or the social media doesn't give us the opportunity to realize it's both and to process that. Because even if it's said, it needs to have more process. It's like what you were saying. It's really the lived experience. And and that's what I try and put in my book, like lived experiences, because really that's the only way we can learn. And this goes back to, I've got about 5 or 6 sayings that kind of are essential to my work. And one of them is that mothering is an experience of making mistakes and repairing them, and making mistakes and repairing them. So, and that's the only way we learn. But I was never told that when I became a mother. I mean, how helpful would that be? It's not, it's like, I don't think I was ever told, but I think I got the message over the years, which is what you were saying, is that we're meant to be like this. We're meant to be like a Madonna, and we're not. And there wasn't the other side. It was, if you're the other side, you're a witch and you don't care, and it's not that black and white. And the other mantras that I really believe in is that I think mothering is a messy and interrupted and loving experience. I mean, it's messy, but I never knew that.
It is messy.
It's interrupted. We get interrupted all the time, and it's loving. And so this notion of and is really important. It's
Yeah.
not it's not splitting, it's not exclusive, it's not this or that. It brings in everything. And then there's the other sayings like mothers do the best that they can. 99.9% of mothers do the best that they can, and we all muddle through. And we only learn by making mistakes, and we make them all the time. And this is what it is. And, when I'm talking to you, I'm kind of thinking about my work and thinking what a gift this is to be able to be a mother and to be able to understand and have these experiences. And you talk about shame. And the shame, I think, is about the fact, and this is a bit crazy, that we think we can be perfect. And
Yeah.
it's just the most, I just don't understand it. I mean, I'm also like this. As a mother, you want to be perfect, but there's no such thing as the perfect mother. But in trying to be perfect, we make ourselves rigid, and we want to,
Yeah.
the shoulds come in, and we want to fulfill every role, and we want to do this, and we want to do every after school activity, and we want to be perfect. But it doesn't exist. And this is a very big part of my work. And what I want to do is I want to lower that bar for mums so that they realize that there's no perfection, and also that perfection is for machines and robots. It's not for human beings. And if we accept our frailties and our deficiencies and we're able to be free with them, with our children, and maybe laugh at them and not take them so seriously, then that what gives an invitation to our children, and it tells them, no, you're a whole human being, and I love every part of you, but not all the time, and that's okay. I do caution here that obviously what you say to your child is very age dependent and relationship dependent. But
Yeah.
I think to say to your child, look, mum or mummy, I'm really tired. I really need a bit of space at the moment. Nothing wrong with that. It's,
Yeah.
because I think we really need to be genuine. Our kids, as you know, pick it up when we're not being genuine. They like
Yeah.
zoom straight into it, and they know. And then they know exactly what buttons to press, and they're smart.
Yeah. Yes, they are. That piece there about having perfection as kind of like, we know it's not
Yes.
like, if we really conceptualize it, it's like that's not realistic to expect anyone to be perfect. We know that. We know that motherhood, like, our kids are humans, we're interacting with other humans, like there's no way. But when that is the kind of standard we're holding ourselves to, it doesn't leave any room for the messiness that you referred to. And the
No, it
messiness
doesn't.
is inevitable. Like,
Mm,
again, we're dealing with us as humans and our children as humans and the world and the chaos of the world and being an adult and all these
mm,
things. We know there's messiness. We know that messiness can't fit into perfection. But if we're kind of holding it as that dichotomy of either you're doing
mm.
it the way you're supposed to or you're not, then you're always going to be not doing it the way you're
Yeah,
supposed to.
yeah. Okay. So when you were saying that, what I was thinking about is how important it is to be able to name something, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a feeling, whether an experience, because once it's named, then we kind of give ourselves permission to understand it and to go there. And that's ambivalence. It has to be named, it has to be understood. And any experience, if we have the courage and the confidence to name it, then it can become real, and then it can become part of who we are. Unfortunately, perfection's named, but it doesn't, it's not reality. But we do collude in it, and
Yeah.
it's not good. But I suppose my work is also about breaking down those barriers, naming ambivalence, naming these feelings, and really
Yeah.
combating the taboo of ambivalence, and also disrupting the myths about motherhood. And the first one is that you're perfect. That's the first myth. And there's many other myths attached to it, but that if we stay with that, that's a huge one, because if we allow ourselves not to be perfect, then it opens up so much. It opens up the capacity to love the messiness, or not. It's like we can love that. It's like
Yeah.
it's not dirty. It's not going to, well, and if it is dirty, it's okay. It's not going to hurt anyone. It's just life. And I think that as mothers, it's like sometimes really difficult to manage that messiness. So then we might maybe switch to, well, we need cleanness. But no, sometimes our house can be clean. And most of the time it's messy, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's like the like deep acceptance of reality. And
Mm,
as you're saying that, and even back to what you were saying before, like thinking about like wanting or feeling like we need to show up perfectly for our kids and the impact, like the negative impact that can have on our kids,
mm,
you know, like
mm,
you said, they do see us as
mm,
humans. Like they
mm,
can see when we're struggling. And yes, there's age appropriateness in communicating that with them, of course, but teaching them how to name the things
mm.
is
Yeah,
such a gift. And then also
yeah.
just knowing that like it doesn't benefit them to feel like they should be perfect. If we're like really
No.
doing a great job masking it, I think that's something that a lot of the moms I talk to, you know, maybe saw their mom handle it all.
Mm, mm.
And you come up and become a mom yourself and you're like, what the hell's wrong with me? I can't
Yeah.
I
Yes.
can't
Yes.
get it together. I'm having these messy
Mm,
feelings about it
mm.
all. And it's like, well, very likely the role model you had maybe wasn't even showing you, like, you didn't see the truth of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's like just another layer of it that
mm,
It's like it's
mm,
important that we're having these conversations and
mm,
normalizing things for us.
mm.
Absolutely. And I think that's enough, but it also, like, the impact goes further than that.
I really like that you use the word mask because when we were talking before, I was thinking about it because as mothers, we do wear masks. And I
Hmm.
think really maybe what you're saying is, well, it's multi-layered because if a mum's struggling and if she thought her mum did it perfectly, then there's something there that's not right. And did her mother wear a mask? And was her mother able to show her true feelings? I mean, I think my mothering experience is actually, I'll tell you a little bit about it because I think it might be helpful in this discussion. I had my first son, he's nearly 45, so this was in the 80s. And it was a long time ago, and there was no social media. And it's so fascinating because what we did in those days is there was a small group of us. There was my sister, family friends that we'd grown up with, and then there's about 6 women with our babies. And every week we'd go to someone else's house for afternoon tea or lunch or whatever, and we'd just sit around and we would really nourish each other. And I think that something there's been lost. I mean, okay, we've had great advancements. I'm not saying that, but something was lost, and there was kind of
Yeah.
such a feeling that we were all in there together. Not 100%, but enough to keep us going. Anyway, so that's nearly 45 years ago, and I really didn't have the wherewithal to understand that maybe I could have difficult feelings about my mothering. I
Yeah.
had them, but once again, I couldn't put them into words. So I really went by the book. My little boy slept. I was really lucky. And I just went by the book. I was young. I was about, 23. And I just did it and it was fine. And then I had secondary infertility. So I've got 9 years between my first and second child. So when this child was born, I definitely wasn't going to be going into any like dark feelings about this because this was just like, no, this is amazing. Now I've got 2 children. How lucky am I? It was fantastic. And then when I was 41, I had my third child who happened to be a daughter. And she just called me out on everything. Like I could not get away with a thing. So why I'm telling you this story is because now I look back on my mothering, I think the first 2 experiences, I was rigid. I wasn't able to manage any kind of thing that wasn't, this is fantastic. And I think that that did not service me well. Whereas with my third child, I had no choice. First of all, I was older and she just called me out and she's amazing, so I couldn't like, I didn't have a comeback, but she actually taught me. And one of the things that she really taught me was how important it is to flow with your mothering and not be rigid. And she made me laugh. I had to laugh at myself. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't laugh in the first 2 experiences, I did,
Yeah.
but this was a different laugh because I just I needed to laugh. Otherwise, I wouldn't manage it. I wouldn't manage every day. So when we're talking about, intergenerational, it was like me. I kind of had 3 generations of siblings, but it's like you have these expectations, and how do we learn about our mothering? And I guess I was lucky because I've now had the opportunity to really rethink it and to write about it. But I think that, to be able to accept that you do make mistakes and you learn from them and you have to face things and you can't take everything so seriously, which I did in the first children. And I think I took it seriously because I think I didn't have anyone. I didn't understand that it was actually okay to be messy. It was actually okay to have these feelings, that they're actually transformative.
Hmm.
So, like in hindsight and in looking back, I can understand it. And that's really what I wanted to give to the readers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things in what you said. One is in that, and I love, like, it's kind of cool having children be almost a case study for these different points of like who you are and what you knew and who your child was and what they were giving back to you. It's like these very different experiences. But it sounds to me that, like, yes, maybe you were like handling it or like showing up the way that you thought you should in
Yes.
those first two.
Yes.
But
You're
it sounds to
absolutely
me
right.
like the feeling and experiencing and almost like capacity for not taking it all so seriously and maybe enjoying it more comes more in the not rigid version of
That's right.
showing up
That's right.
and
Not
allowing it to
rigid.
be like allowing
That's right.
yourself to feel all the things and
Yes.
be truthful about that
Yes. Yes.
actually gives you more capacity for joy. And I know
Definitely.
like I can relate so much to that in my own life. Just my kids are pretty close in age, but in just the journey of having kids for the last 7 years, it's like as I've learned more about how to name these things and how to like not go to a place of like deep shame for having
Yeah.
hard feelings
Yeah.
about motherhood and like sometimes about my kids. Like
Sure.
if I don't automatically fall into that shame, it allows me to be like, okay, like, yes, yesterday was really hard, but I allow it to kind of like just roll off and like
Yeah.
now we're here today and I'm not carrying shame from yesterday into today
Yeah.
because it is what it is.
Yeah. What you're talking about, I also talked about in my book. I made a distinction between guilt and shame. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you've just made that without naming it. You know, we all have things about our mothering that we don't like, that we're not proud of. We know that. And I think what happens is these feelings are there and they get set
Mm-hmm.
off. But I think when you have guilt, okay, you've got the guilt, you get set off, but you're able to get up and dust yourself off and keep going, which is what you're talking about. I think shame is a really different experience. I think shame is when your whole body and your whole soul is tied up with the fact that you're not enough. And there's something not right the whole time. And I wrote a story in my book about a young mum who was really struggling. She was close to her mother, but she had a little girl, and she was really struggling. And what I write about is, if my daughter went to the toilet and didn't dirty her pants, I was a
Yeah.
good mother. If she didn't, I was a bad mother. Like bad, I don't like using the word. I was a deficient mother. If she got sunburned, I was no good. And if I put sun cream on, I was fine. So everything was wrapped up around judging herself, which is what we've been talking
Yeah.
about. So she was struggling with this. And then, she was trying to read around it, and she found an article that really spoke to her. And it talked about how mothering is carried through the generations, and that you mother the way that you were mothered. And of course, we know that most of the time. And so she thought about it and she said, you know what? That's right. And I need to change this somehow. So they're at the park the next day, the mum, the little girl, the 3-year-old, and her mother, because she spent a lot of time with her mother. They're at the park, my favorite place, and she's swinging her daughter on the swing. And the mother's saying, oh, don't swing her that high, she'll fall off, blah, 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 blah. And then she turned around and said to her mum, listen, mum, I love you. You've been a great mum to me. But what you've got to understand is it's my turn to mother my daughter the way that I need to mother her. I'll
Yeah.
make mistakes, I'll make failures, but I'll learn from them. It's your job actually to be the grandmother, to have fun with her. And I'm now releasing myself from that. And that was like such a turning point for her, because she realized that, okay, she realized how the chain of mothering, but it changed her capacity, because she realized that she couldn't carry this shame anymore. She
Yeah.
opened herself up to realize, okay, well, if my child has dirties her diaper, okay, it's okay. If I don't put sunscreen on, okay, it'll be fine. So she kind of dropped the bar and she kind of understood. So it was like one of those moments that we all have occasionally in our mothering, that just, like, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
So I think that what you're talking about really is that difference between guilt. Yes, you can have guilt. You can not put sun cream on your child and feel terrible about it. But
Yeah.
listen, get over it. And what she was rigid. And so she
Yes.
realized the rigidity did not work for her, and it was coming from her mother, but it was actually her responsibility to change it,
Yeah.
not her mum's.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like the thing I want to say about that is it's like you're going to make mistakes, like clearly. you're going to. So it's almost like kind of pre understanding,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, I'm going to
Giving
make the
permission,
mistakes.
giving
Yeah.
yourself permission, and it's okay and it's normal.
Yeah. And then that there can still be the guilt. There can still be the like,
Yeah,
okay, I got to figure this out. I can't
yeah,
let my kid get that sunburned again. Like,
yes,
you
yeah,
can do something about it. It's not
yeah,
like saying, just accepting I'm going to make the same mistakes over and over again. It's like, no, I
no,
just know I'm going to make mistakes.
yeah,
And so I'm no longer making that mean something about me because like I've already clarified with myself that's going to happen and
yes, yes.
just how
It's
huge of a
yeah,
difference that can be.
yeah. I like switching that narrative, knowing that you are going to make mistakes and it's okay. And that's how you learn about yourself and about your child. And that's how you develop. And I think, it is so much about flow and fun, so much about
Mm-hmm.
learning in my work. And like it sounds so obvious, but unless when you actually read it and you identify it, you can have one of those like those moments of like that makes sense. And
Yeah.
someone else has been through this and they've said it. So, it's okay. And what this also goes to is I'm not alone. Because as we
Yeah.
know, mothering, whether even if you're lucky enough to have an understanding partner, it is really lonely. Like there's
Yeah.
times that it is really lonely. And you know what? There's a taboo there even about talking about that. Or, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess we can mention it, but do we really talk about those feelings in depth and what that's like and what that can mean? I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah. I think that like kind of sums up for me why I have been so interested in the study of motherhood and why this is something like I'm actively studying is because when I do more academic, I have a certification in motherhood studies and like going through that, there's so much of it where you're reading some academic
Mm,
paper or text on some phenomenon in motherhood and you're reading it and you're like, oh, duh. Like, yeah, like I've experienced that. And it really, a lot of it is like naming these things that we all
yes,
experience.
that's right.
And,
That's right.
when you're learning about maternal ambivalence and learning that this is something that's just going to happen, like it's
Mm,
natural to have these complex feelings, especially in the world we're mothering in where there's so much happening. And like, of course. But if we
mm,
don't name it, if we don't talk about it, if we've
mm,
never heard that that's normal, if we feel completely alone in just feeling like, oh my God, I hate this right now,
mm.
then it
And
feels so isolating and scary and shameful. And as soon as it's named, and as soon as you can be reading into this and learning more, listening to something like this, and it clicks, and you're like,
yes, yes.
whoa, okay.
Mm, mm, mm. And it's transformative. Like the other
Yes.
part that I really want to emphasize, it's like it's transformative. And if we don't kind of dive into it, we don't realize how transformative it is, how it can change us and it can change our children. It can change our whole lives. It's
Yeah.
like a reworking.
Can you like speak to exactly what you mean by that? Like thinking about maternal ambivalence as transformative. Is it the acceptance of that or
Okay. It's really when I was talking before about those moments that melt us
Mhm.
and keep us
Mhm.
going. That's really the transformation. Yesterday I was with a colleague and she was talking about like she's a mother of three and she's pretty onto it and into it. But she said the other night she's got three children and her middle one sounds just divine. There's a little boy who's 11. There's an older boy, I think he's about maybe 15, and a little girl. And she said this one's very tender. And then the other night she went up, can you please get ready for bed? The old story. So she comes back 20 minutes later. He's not ready. She's annoyed. She starts yelling at him, which is probably out of, like she said, it's not usual. But
Yeah.
okay, she yelled at him. She lost the plot. She felt terrible, of course, all night, guilty, blah, blah. We know the story. So the next morning she said to him, I'm really sorry. I lost it with you. It was the wrong thing. It was about me. It wasn't about you. And I'm really sorry. So she apologized to him. And he said something like, oh, you're the best mum. You're just the best. And that's a melting moment. And that's
Yeah.
that's what I mean. That renews you. That keeps you going. That's why mums continue to, like I say, get up every day and face it. I mean,
Yeah.
when those kind of moments. But if she hadn't thought about those feelings, that she was ashamed of herself
Yeah.
about that. But then she moved to guilt because, okay, she worked out what to do with it and she apologized to him. It was probably, I'm sure it was the right thing at that age. And then she got something back that she never expected. So, had she not thought about this and pondered it and reached deep into herself to try and understand it, she wouldn't have got there. And that's what I mean by the
Yeah.
transformation. She got together all her feelings, and she's like, she gives out an aura that she's got it all together. Okay, we all kind of have it all together, not really, but she exposed something vulnerable, and that's the other thing with our children. If we can be vulnerable, it teaches them that they can be vulnerable, and it allows us to flow. And sometimes we get beautiful surprises like that. That's what I mean by it.
Yeah, the word that's coming up for me is just like richness. Like there's such a
Yeah,
richness in that
yeah,
type of
yeah,
relationship. And if
yeah,
if you spiral into the shame and then just don't like handle the actual situation and
mm, mm.
instead make it mean something about you,
Yeah,
like a value about you, it's like
yeah,
it cuts
yeah.
off the opportunity for that to transform.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And that's why I say that there's value in those dark, difficult moments. And we really need to think of them and to name them. And we need to give them value. But it's such like a different idea. And
Yeah.
that's what I want to, it kind of is transformative in itself. Like, why didn't I think of this 45 years ago? Would have been
Well,
very helpful. But
you're
the
changing the
whole
world with it now.
yeah. Well, I mean, the whole irony is you don't get there except
Yeah.
by learning your failure, by your mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the like that's the whole point. That's the whole
Yes.
point is that you're going to continue learning through
Yeah.
it as long as you
Yeah.
allow yourself to
That's
not
right.
be stuck in the way
That's
of just
right.
striving for
Yeah.
some type of
Perfection
motherhood that
or
doesn't exist.
that's right. Exactly. And as a grandmother and mother of adult children, I make mistakes all the time, practically every time I open my mouth. But you have to adapt, and when you've got adult children and they've got their own children, then I found I just try and not say too much, and I really do. When I watch my daughter-in-laws with their children, it's awesome in the real sense of the word. I feel awe when I see how they do it and what they do, and I mean, I wish I would have been more like them, but okay, I accept it. What I've done, and I'm got three fantastic, young adults. But okay, but it's also about still being able to learn. I learned from them. I learned from meeting people like you, from having these conversations, because it's such a wonderful field. And whenever I speak to someone, I learn so much. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, if I didn't learn, I wouldn't be doing it because I kind of feel there's no like barrier. There's no like it's
Yeah.
finished now because if I look at you, you're a young mum with two young children. You must have had 100 experiences today that I could learn from, and
Yeah.
and the number of mothers in the world, it's just incredible. And so there's so many experiences, and we all have a responsibility to learn ourselves about ourselves, and also to support other mums and to learn, which is really important. I talked about that group that I had when my first child was an infant, toddler. It's also about really being aware of the people that you surround yourself with. Like
Yeah.
to know. I mean, I think as mums we have antennas. So to know you want to surround yourself by people that give you energy, that boost you up, that are truthful to you, but have your back. And I think that's such an important lesson.
Yeah. There's so many things that I'm just listening to and like taking it in. And that actually leads very nicely into what I always love to ask as the final question on this podcast, because I do think there's so much we can learn from each other. And I think as moms, well, I know as moms, we often are kind of conditioned to not take care of ourselves in the
Yeah.
way that we probably should be
Mm, mm.
because, all these things we've talked about. But I really like talking explicitly about caring for ourselves and getting our
Okay.
needs met as
Mm,
moms. And so
mm.
I love to ask every guest that comes on here how you take care of yourself now and maybe when you were in that more hands-on
Okay.
motherhood and just how that translates to other moms listening.
Okay. Well, as a non-hands-on mother at the moment, I think take care of myself by writing
Mm-hmm.
and by doing my work. That really, it enables me to understand my own mothering, and that's really important to me. And I really love the process of writing because it nourishes me. I'm creating something, and I really like that. That keeps me going. And also, when I get a chance to see my grandchildren, it's just unbelievable. That self-care. I think when I look back on my own mothering, I don't think I was in any frame to care about myself enough. I did some things that were really, I can't believe that I did it. Like, I used to tutor maths, and I had my first child, and so he was running around the place, and I was trying to tutor. I mean, that was just an example of why didn't I get someone to help me so I could be in? It's just,
Yeah.
I actually almost didn't think that. I don't know if I wasn't looking after myself, and I don't know why I gave that example, but it's just what came to my mind. So I think it was more that I really felt that my child was first and I wasn't first, like that rigidity. And I didn't understand how important it was for me to look after myself so I could look after him or the next one or the next one. I eventually learnt it, but it took a little while. But okay, I learnt it, and I do write in my books how important that self-care is. It's like, I know that boring saying, you've got to put the mask on yourself before you put it on your child. I mean, has been an overuse, but it is so right. Like, we really have
Yeah.
to. And whether it's going for a walk or riding or movie or whatever it is, it's so important because then you fill yourself up, then you can give. And you can give to your child and you can give to yourself. It's like, because we have to be able to get up. That's the other thing that makes us get up and keep on going.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a
I
nice
mean,
question.
I think it's a very important question, and
Yeah,
I
it
love
is.
asking it because the reflection it allows is so
Mm, mm,
great. And I think it's really great for us to be normalizing those kind of conversations. Like, yes, like, please care for yourself. You
yeah,
deserve it. Like, you
yeah,
really, really do.
yeah, yeah. And mums, we have trouble doing that. Like, we
Yeah.
really have trouble.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot vying for our attention at any given time. And a lot of, again, that societal messaging that tells us and that we take on as like our children
Mm,
always come first. And so
mm,
breaking that down
mm,
a little bit
mm.
and just recognizing how important it is.
Yeah, and I think when you say that, it's like your children come first and you come
Yes.
first. It's like
Yeah.
it's the and I think that that was part of my trap because that's what I thought. I didn't have the ability to the ands and the
Yeah.
ambivalence. It's all tied together.
It's complex.
It's very complex. That's why we love
Yes.
it.
Yep. And that's why we got to talk about it. That's why we have to
That's
make it clear
that's
that,
right.
like, you can't get stuck in the rigidity of thinking about things in one way. It's like that
No,
and is crucial.
yeah, it is.
Where can listeners learn more about your work? I mean,
Okay,
obviously, again, great book.
my book. It's a great book. I love it. I love my book. And, I think that, the title, The Loving Moments and Bitter Truths, it like that
Mhm.
just captures so much about my work. You can look me up on my website, drmargolowy.com. And, write to me. I'm on Instagram, well, mostly Instagram, Facebook, those sites. And, reach out to me. You'll find what the podcast that I've done. I get a lot of value from the podcast. I love it. I love
Yeah.
the conversations. I love it when, like today, we flow. Most of them, like the majority of them, they're the ones that are easy with the flow.
Yeah. I mean, I admire you for speaking up on this topic that, again,
Thank you.
is traditionally seen as taboo. It's so important
Yes.
that we are normalizing this and speaking out about it. And I admire your work and
Thank you.
everything you're
Thank
doing
you.
to change
Yeah, I'm trying.
the
Thank
narrative
you.
around motherhood.
Thank you. And thank you we're all doing it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming together to do this. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here and taking the
Thank
time to
you.
have this conversation with me.
Thank
And
you. It
for
was great.
everybody
Really enjoyed it.
listening, so amazing. I hope that this conversation again was both validating and also maybe gives you something to like chew on a bit about how there's actually benefits to having these complex feelings and to
Yeah.
allowing that to be the way it is and giving yourself the grace to just experience it all. We will be back next week for another episode. You are worthy, Mama.